plenty going on in round 9 of NBL 25. We had a huge Sunday of hoops, including James Bateman going off for 51 points in a single game. We're going to talk about the lessons and learnings of the first half of SuperCoach and some of the wild cards that you might include in your rounds to come. Hello and welcome back to the panel. I'm your host, Kelsey Brown, here as always with our experts. We're going to start with James Clements, basketball SuperCoach wizard. JC, I want to talk to you about your week. How did you go?
Basketball wizard, basketball muggle. I feel like this week it was horrible. Actually, look, it was fight weekend on the weekend. We had Mike Tyson. My team was basically like Mike Tyson, old, washed, slow, disappointing. It was just like, this sucks. So I think it was a tough week for my team. I think a couple of the pods that I sort of had did not work out, and here we are. Now I've got to just, sift through the wreckage.
Our second expert here is Boydie, 1/3 of Basketball Blokes. Boydie, welcome to the panel again. We love to have your insight. How was your week?
Week pretty good. I think top bloke 2 weeks running now. In our podcast, we have a little bit of a competition between ourselves. So I think I scored about 350, which wasn't that great of a score, but it wasn't too bad. It saw me climbing up the rankings a little bit, nearly in that top 1,000 now. So after a couple of weeks back, so doing all right.
It's making my 347 not sound too bad,
That's good.
But still not a great week for me either. I am the rookie here, so I want to talk to you guys about the hots and nots. We want to start with James Bateman, an impressive weekend from him, 51 points in a game against Perth. Perth are really handing over some big scores to teams, but James Bateman, he's up the top with 83. Bryce Cotton was in there with 71. I did speak to you, JC, about maybe him gaining some junk points at the end of that Brisbane game. Keandre Cook, Kendrick Davis and Dylan Windler is a strange one in there. I want to talk to you about him, Boydie. But JC, talk to me about that list, the hot list. Anyone out there catching your eye?
A lot of it is tread with caution, I feel like, Boydie, right? Like all of these names on that hot list, you sort of look at them and go, oh, that was really cool. But Bateman, I think his highest SuperCoach score this year had been 34 until this week, right? So you can't go, well, it's clear indications that he's going to completely smash it for the rest of the season. He's very sort of hit or miss, obviously, but he hit massively this week. It was unreal. The one that I do like, obviously, Bryce Cotton was just out there making a fool of all of us, and it's like, hey, guess what? I'm going to play. It's like, I would have loved to have known that before the round.
Plenty of people captained him actually, which is interesting. There was some people, especially guys that got up the top in the scoring for the week, captained him, which is very gutsy decision.
Very astute as well, which is the opposite of me. And Ben, I think Dylan Windler being on that hot list is again. Just to treat this with absolute caution, I think, here, Boydie, right? Because Doolittle goes out of that game with apparent knee soreness.
Yep.
We know that Windler has like a half-decent ceiling, I guess, to his score. He can score pretty highly, and he did. He's scored 62 for the week. Outside of that, though, I'm just going to be rolling with him on a precautionary basis of if Doolittle's out, thumbs up. But even then, I'm still not entirely sold. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one this week.
No, Windler's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde. He pops up for little scores here and there, but it doesn't give me the confidence to go with him and bring him into my side. I've never owned him, so that's probably a little bit of bias there as well. Bateman, who you mentioned, I think there's a lot of red flags going on here. Obviously, Casey Prather played the first game for the round with Brisbane, and Bateman only scored, I think, 19 or 18 SuperCoach points for that first game. Prather misses the second one. Bateman goes on a tear and has a huge game. I think there's a massive red flag with Bateman, Prather coming back, and also Deng Adele's trying to work himself back into that rotation as well. He's only played limited minutes so far after such an extended break. So it's a little bit scary there, I think, for Bateman. Obviously, he had that great game. Give that to him, but I don't think I'd be going with him. And Cotton, we always say twice Bryce is nice on our pod. So
Cotton was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's got a low BE again. So I've got him down a bit further when we talk about wild cards, because I think he's even maybe a wild card, because no one is kind of thinking about him. I think everyone's probably thinking about him, but not many people have him in their side at the moment. So Bryce, BE of 42, I think. So like it.
Someone that we have spoken about before on this podcast is Will Hickey. He's on our not list. He's sitting at 1 for the round, 268,000. He's on the not list, JC. What do you think about that?
This is cosmic justice, I feel like. A little bit of cosmic justice of getting off the Hickey bandwagon at the exact wrong time, and I probably would have held him this week and then just gotten burnt by this. So it all kind of evens out in SuperCoach sometimes, but yeah, the other names on this not list are also, pretty big alarm bells, I reckon.
I think Hickey's probably at that top of the price band where he's going to see. Cal missed some time, so he had lots of minutes. He's right up the top there. I can see him coming back a little bit now. They're trying to find a little bit more groove with Cal back in the lineup. So I don't think you'd go with him. I think you'd be staying away, and he's probably a trade out, especially with their schedule in the next couple of weeks.
100%.
But I know they come home a little bit stronger. So
he's one to keep in the back of the brain. Like that Cal Harvey Hickey combo for the Hawks is just like, it's so hard. It's very similar, I think, to sometimes the United backcourt, where it's like, it's just like basically roulette.
Yep.
SuperCoach roulette. So who's going to go off today? And it's like, is it going to be Shea Ali? Is it going to be Delhi? Illawarra is almost the same, but now that sort of if they've got all three playing, it's going to get really hard.
Well, you can make all of your changes at supercoach.com.au, a place that we like to spend our time and go forward and back. You can undo trades, you can sub, you can do everything and have a look at prices of players. So supercoach.com.au for all of your Supercoach needs. The shout-outs too, let's get to those. So Axel's Academy for Nicholas on 456. His team was entirely Perth and Brisbane. Jumper for Thomas, 443. He captained Cotton, so Boydie, like you spoke about, had Cook as vice captain. Bol Elite for Ollie, 437. Again, team was entirely Perth and Brisbane, so a huge move for them. Bench Warmers United, hilarious name from Adam. Keandre Cook as captain, who went off against Tassie, 23-2-2-5. He had 40 Supercoach points against Tassie, so that was huge for him. And Dribbles for Harry, 425. Again, all Perth, all Brisbane. JC, how do you see the makeup of those teams? Is Perth and Brisbane where you're going?
I'm so jealous. Like the thing is, like I had sort of positioned mine for a lot of Perth, and obviously with Tyrell Harrison. What I didn't have last week was that extra sort of, I still had the Chris Goulding really low break even, just the fingers crossed move and just sort of go, hopefully he goes off. So it was very, when you look at the top 1% of coaches this week, it really is stark how many of the Brisbane doubles they had, how many of the Perth doubles they sort of nailed. But really, it comes down, as you said, Boydie, like nailing that Bryce call at that exact time. Like he's already been traded in 25% of coaches so far this week, which is smart. So yeah, I look at those teams and it's like they nailed the exact week that they needed to, which was a tough week to nail. But it also sets you up very interestingly going forward for the rest of the season.
Which is what I want to know now is going forward for the rest of the season, what do you guys have? What are the moves that you're making? Captains, value for money men, and even the wild cards. We had a mention about Taco Fall. He comes into the mix now with the absence of Freddie Gillespie moving on from New Zealand Breakers. So I want to hear from you, Boydie. Yep. Your wild cards, value for money men, who would you be including into your team?
I think you've got to play the schedule now. So Perth have got the two doubles to come still, so Cotton's the big one there. I don't think he's a wild card as such, but I think there's going to be plenty of people bringing him in. New Zealand have got 17 games in 9 rounds over the next run now. So PJC should be in everyone's team because they've only had 2 singles in a row. Don't worry about it. There's other names there, like you mentioned Taco Fall. Is he fit? Does he play straight away? Gillespie's gone already. So does that open the door up from Meninga? If you've got him already, you probably hold him. If you don't have him already, does he come into calculations? There's still a few returning for New Zealand as well with Darling and that. Does that hurt Lopez, etc.? Who knows? Brizzy have got, after this round, they've got 8 straight doubles. That's why their Brizzy players are popular at the moment. And then Adelaide's a bit of a slow burn. So they've got 16 games in 9 rounds after this round. They're obviously on a single this round. And we're not sure what's going on with Adelaide after their game against Melbourne on the weekend. Hopefully they have a full roster. When we get back into NBL in 8 days, 6 or 7 days, something along those lines. But there's obviously some players there we probably haven't talked about for a little while. No one's really had them on the list. So you've got Trez, obviously. You've got Davis, who's ripping it up there. He was in our hot list. He only played the single, but had 62 on the weekend. So I think he's a player you can trust going forward as well. But he's so expensive, but he's actually projected to go up again as well. So when do you get him?
That's it. I mean, the Kendrick Davis thing with Adelaide. So after round 11, they got the 7 games in 4 rounds, right? So It's just like bang, 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 off we go. I think that's what my entire strategy is, I think, from here on out. I think I'm pretty nicely set up. I've already got 4 breakers just sitting there. I've got, I think, 3 Wildcats as well. Probably move on from Doolittle, but that's it. Like I can play the schedule pretty easily, I think, with the breakers there and sort of fill in the gaps. I've already got Tyrell Harrison sitting there, so I think my entire strategy from here out will be to load up on as many of the top 5 scorers as I possibly can, have them on court from the double teams throughout the rest of the season, basically, and then try to sort of plug the gaps with the bench and try. Cash cows are still cash cows, but I've got Menenga sitting there, and that's like the fascinating piece of the Taco Fall story is like Menenga might actually have like this really nice little run for a couple of weeks. PJC's a lock and load for me. The one that I want to keep in the back of my head though, Boydie, Wanted, dead or alive. On a steel horse I ride. I still believe in Jack White. Wanted, dead or alive. He can come back. They've got doubles in 11 and 12. Let's go, Jack. I'm back on board. So that's kind of the thing. Like, I can't wait to get Jack White back on my side. Like, he sort of has that sort of little injury. He gets the 2 weeks off, and off we go. Wanted, dead or alive, Jack White. So you also, from round 13, you have double heavy runs from like Sydney and Tassie. So that's when Xavier Cooks comes back into my estimations. And the big question sort of out of that is like, would you look at Milton Doyle, stuff like that? I just don't think I would. I'm just, fingers crossed, I'm just going to go with the run of Brisbane. But mostly it's like, yeah, play the schedule, get as many doubles on the court as you possibly can, which should be pretty easy at this point, I think, and hope that your bench is actually all right as well. I
want to ask you a quick fire. I'm putting you on the spot here. If you can just quick fire a trust and a not trust of names on your list. JC, start with you.
The trust that I've got is PJC. Like, I think it's really simple. I think his role is just really, really solid. And like, leading the NBL in assists at the moment. And I think his floor is super high because he's always got the ball. Like, and the turnovers might hurt you, the scoring will be there. He is one that I'm just locking and loading and I'm probably not touching. And the question for me is obviously that second guard spot, whether it's Bryce, whether it's Kendrick Davis.
That's mine. I'm going to trust Kendrick Davis. I think he's leading the league in scoring and second in assists. Yep. So he's obviously doing everything at Adelaide there. His average in Supercoach points is great as well. So, and with that run I talked about for a little while with Adelaide, I'm tempted to bring him in this week, park him on the bench for a week on a single, and then ride him for the rest of the year.
We said from the top we were going to talk about lessons and learnings, and I want to get to those now. Your lessons and learnings from the first 9 rounds of Supercoach. JC, lessons, learnings, what would you give someone for advice from round 10 to 20?
Don't do what Donnie Don't does, I think. Is that right? Don't do what JC did. There you go. My entire thing when it comes to Supercoach is I do tend to galaxy brain myself. So my learning is, hey, James, sometimes just don't galaxy brain yourself. Sometimes easy is best, and it's actually the easiest and the best for your Supercoach team. Like, I tried to, even from the get-go, I'm like, look, as Illawarra tried to get sort of settled, maybe Sam Froling will have like a really nice run. And he has actually been a really good, solid scorer in terms of an average throughout this season. Yep. But he didn't quite have the upside at the start of the season. That came back as a bit of a, it backfired. But then on top of that as well, like, then the galaxy brain aspect of this, like bringing in DJ as like a bit of a shot in the arm, and just like maybe this is a POD for a couple of weeks. The same thing then, I then doubled down on that and went to Goulding. That worked for 1 week. Outside of that, it's been very up and down. So I've galaxy brained myself into like trying to make PODs sort of happen, and they haven't actually happened. And outside of that, it's sort of just trying to maintain a really high floor, and I just didn't quite nail that, I think, so far for the first half of the season, but I feel like I've set it up pretty nicely for the second.
Boydie?
Probably holding on to some players longer than you should, and that's for positives and negatives. So one example I've got there is Magnay. I brought him in and held him for too long when he was putting up these average scores. Then he goes and misses on a double. He misses their second game, puts me completely out for that round. But the yin yang to that as well, like holding on to guys. I had Matt Hurtis to start the season. Now he was in the top 3 average Supercoach scores until the last couple of weeks. Yep. Why didn't I hold on to him? Why didn't I hold on to Trez? Because he's been getting 60s and 50s and stuff on singles. You probably could have just kept him, little things like that. The other one going forward, I'd probably say, is maybe have a look at like injuries, right? And taking advantage of those. We saw how Henschel and Pepper came on with Cotton out. This round, we just saw Jack White out, so Bowen took advantage of that starting gig, got a really good score as well. Is there some guys that are going to be out for a little while yet? We don't know. So I'd probably be playing that game a little bit now, trying to get.
I think a lot, like sort of plugging those spots on your bench as well. A lot of it just sort of comes down to which cash cows did you actually get right.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of us sort of sat with Rocco too long, vaulted Rocco, and then Rocco came out last week and smashed it. Like, of course he did. The Will Hickey corollary, it's the same sort of thing, right? As soon as everybody got off him, he went ballistic, and if you stayed with him, you're looking like a champion. And if you didn't, you look like me, an idiot. But on top of that, like, I think the rest of this season, like, what can you then sort of look forward to? You're looking at roles, you're looking at the amount of times you're playing, obviously. And one name that we hit on him last week is Josh Bannon. And like every time you see him play, he just does the right thing. And I feel like he's got a super high floor to his scoring, and I'm fascinated to see how he goes for the rest of it. So with Brisbane having a single for next round and then that run of doubles, like Bannon's going to be basically one of my big targets. It'd be nice to be able to lock and load him, Boydie. I just don't know. Like, what do you feel about Josh Bannon?
I'm a bit torn with him. He's got the ceiling's not there. Last season we probably saw a bit more ceiling from him, where he could punch those games in the 40s with double doubles. Now he just missed out on a double double in the second game, and I think there was some.
Did he? He somehow missed out on that,
We'll just go with the stat takers at the moment, but. That might help you score a little bit, obviously, but you're right. He's got a great floor. So if you want to get in there and just have consistent 20 pluses, I think you can probably park him.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether he's like that captain possibility.
It's a tough one because I feel like you might end up choosing between like he and Jack White, and like White at least has like this huge upside.
Double machine.
Absolutely crush it. And then there's like two other sort of like random names, like Keandre Cook. I mean, he's got a 3-round average through the roof at the moment, like over 37, which is really good. And obviously Kendrick Davis, like whether or not you sort of can get him in. And I feel like as you hit on, like his ceiling is massive, his floor is really high as well because he's got those assist numbers too.
Yep.
And like those are the sort of questions you'll have to answer in the next few weeks. But you should be able to have like get your team to a point where you're like, right, with 2 trades each round, you should be able to like basically pick and choose who you like and whose matchup you like as well. So if you've got injuries to cover, cool. Outside of that, you can actually just go matchup hunting, which is really cool.
You both just spoke about the injuries. You can keep up to date with all of those things on the NBL app. Make sure you keep up with it even though we're on the FIBA break. There's a lot of information there that you can keep up to date with. Guys, as always, absolutely love your insights. Thank you so much for joining us. We won't be back next week. We'll have a week off next week, but that means even more time for you, JC, to tinker with your team. Like I said, guys, as always, thanks for joining us. And to you at home, thank you so much for your time and enjoy your SuperCoach endeavours.